In the sprawling world of Chinese entertainment, where every smile is scrutinized and every gesture can ignite a storm of speculation, two names stand out with an almost mythical glow: Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo. Their connection has been a subject of fascination since the moment they shared the screen in The Untamed. Yet, beyond the glamour of stardom, there is something more profound, more quietly radiant, that fans have often described as their most love that self. This phrase, though unusual in structure, carries within it a depth that speaks volumes. It suggests a love that isn't necessarily loud or public, but one that is truest when both are simply themselves, unmasked, vulnerable and real. What follows is a journey into their story, not just of fame, but of two souls finding light in each other's presence. The entertainment world thrives on pairings, co-stars brought together for drama, variety shows or fleeting collaborations. Yet, something shifted in 2019 when Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo embodied the characters of Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji. Their chemistry was electric, but more than that, it was deeply natural. On screen, they portrayed two men bound by loyalty, trust, and an unshakable connection. Off-screen, that portrayal seemed to echo something authentic. Fans noticed the little things: the way Xiao Zhan's laughter softened Wang Yibo's cool demeanor, or how Wang Yibo's steady silence anchored Xiao Zhan's warmth. It was never just acting. It was resonance. When the lights dimmed and the camera stopped rolling, many expected their connection to fade into the manufactured glow of celebrity. Instead, whispers grew louder. Accounts of Xiao Zhan waiting quietly for Yibo to finish his motorbike practice, or Yibo showing up unannounced to support Xiao Zhan's stage performances. In one interview, Xiao Zhan was asked who among his colleagues truly understood him. He hesitated for a moment, then smiled, glancing at Yibo. The cameras caught the glance, but it was fleeting, almost like a secret shared in plain sight. Yibo, in his usual reserved tone, once said, "There are very few people I can be quiet with, and it doesn't feel uncomfortable. He's one of them." That quiet was their language, and it was louder than any public declaration. What does it mean to love someone in a way that allows both to be their most authentic selves? For Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo, it meant finding a rhythm where fame didn't consume their humanity. Xiao Zhan, known for his gentle, almost self-effacing personality, often bore the weight of being overly accommodating. Wang Yibo, guarded and sometimes misunderstood as aloof, carried the armor of silence. Together they softened those edges. Fans often pointed out how Xiao Zhan encouraged Yibo to express more openly, while Yibo gave Xiao Zhan the courage to stand firmer. They were not trying to change each other, but rather amplifying the parts of themselves that the world rarely saw. It was love that didn't demand performance. Love that existed quietly, in stolen moments, over shared meals, in rehearsals, or even in the simple act of sitting side by side without needing words. Of course, their journey was not without storms. Both men faced the crushing weight of public pressure. Xiao Zhan during a difficult controversy in 2020, and Yibo under the constant eye of those questioning his every move. Yet, amidst these storms, one detail remained constant. Whenever one faltered, the other's presence, visible or invisible, seemed to anchor him. When Xiao Zhan disappeared from the public eye for months, fans noticed Yibo's subtle but telling gestures. A lyric in a song, a mention in an interview, or simply the way he avoided questions with a protective smile. Likewise, when Yibo faced his own challenges, Xiao Zhan's quiet encouragement and steadfast loyalty never seemed to waver. Their love, that self, was not one of flamboyant declarations. It was resilience, built on trust and on knowing that when the world felt unbearable, there was one person who would not let go. There is something captivating about the way Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo communicate without words. During live performances, a single glance seems to convey entire paragraphs. Fans recall one award show where they sat apart, yet in a fleeting second, their eyes met. Xiao Zhan's lips curved in the faintest smile, and Yibo's shoulders relaxed as if reassured. It was love in its simplest form, the comfort of knowing someone sees you, even in a crowded room. Body language experts analyzing their interactions often point out mirroring, how Xiao Zhan would cross his arms and Yibo would follow a second later, or how they leaned subtly toward each other in group settings. These small details, while overlooked by casual observers, spoke volumes to those attuned to their connection. The world demands labels, but not all loves can, or should, be defined so easily. Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's connection defied the conventional molds of celebrity friendships, partnerships, or rumored romances. It thrived not in headlines, but in subtleties. Love in the shadows is often mistaken for weakness. Yet in their case it was strength. By keeping the most sacred parts of their bond private, they preserved its authenticity. They chose to nurture it away from the chaos of public speculation, allowing it to grow in silence, just as a seed takes root underground before blooming. Why does the world remain captivated by Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's most love that self? Perhaps because it speaks to a universal longing. We all crave a connection where we are loved not for the roles we play, but for the truest versions of ourselves. Their bond reminds us that real love isn't always fireworks and grand gestures. Sometimes it is simply someone remembering your favorite meal. Someone sitting with you in silence after a long day. Someone who sees both your flaws and your brilliance, and loves you all the more for it. Though the future is uncertain and their careers continue to pull them in different directions, one truth remains. Their story has already carved itself into the hearts of millions. Whether they stand side by side on stage again or walk separate paths, the legacy of their connection endures. For fans, Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's story is not merely about romance or speculation. It is about courage, vulnerability, and love that exists most powerfully when two people are simply themselves. In a world obsessed with appearances, Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's most love that self feels like a quiet revolution. It is a reminder that the most profound loves are not always the loudest. They are the ones that allow us to breathe, to shed our masks, and to find comfort in the simple truth of being known. Their journey, filled with unspoken glances, mutual support, and silent resilience, paints a picture of love at its purest. And perhaps that is why their story continues to captivate the world, because it reflects a truth we all yearn for: love that frees us to be ourselves. The story of Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo is not merely a tale of two actors bound by destiny. It is a symphony, one played in hushed tones, in glances, and in gestures that speak louder than any words. Their most love that self isn't built on glittering confessions or staged publicity. It lives in the small, almost invisible details, the kind of love you only notice when you watch with your heart. One evening during a late-night shoot for The Untamed, the skies opened, drenching the set. The crew scrambled for cover, umbrellas blooming like hurried flowers. Xiao Zhan, known for always checking on everyone before himself, was seen rushing to help a makeup artist shield the equipment from the downpour. And then, quietly, without words, Wang Yibo appeared beside him. Unlike others who ran for safety, he stood in the rain, holding an umbrella over Xiao Zhan's head instead of his own. He didn't fuss, didn't make it dramatic. He just stood there, silent, shielding his partner as water streamed down his own shoulders. It was a fleeting moment, but for those who caught it, it revealed everything. A love that protects not for show, but because it's instinct. In the chaos of fame, silence often feels unbearable. Yet for Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo, silence is not a void, it's a sanctuary. During one award ceremony, both sat among dozens of stars, flashes exploding, fans screaming. Xiao Zhan's smile, though radiant, seemed strained under the relentless cameras. Yibo, seated just a few rows away, glanced at him, and in that single look, Xiao Zhan relaxed. His shoulders softened. His laughter became genuine again. They didn't exchange words. They didn't even sit together. But the silence between them hummed like an invisible thread, tethering them, reminding both, "You are not alone." There's a scene fans never tire of replaying. Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo on stage, receiving an award. The host cracks a joke, the audience erupts in laughter, but Yibo, reserved as always, remains stoic. Then, Xiao Zhan nudges him lightly with his elbow, whispering something only Yibo can hear. For a split second, Yibo's lips curl into a smile so genuine, so rare, that the entire fandom immortalized it in GIFs, edits, and fan art. It wasn't just a smile. It was Yibo letting his guard down, because Xiao Zhan was beside him. Moments like these became their signature, a glance that turns into reassurance, a small touch that blooms into unspoken comfort. To the world it was subtle. To those who saw deeper, it was love manifesting in its purest, simplest form. Fame is a double-edged sword. Both Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo know this too well. When Xiao Zhan faced the darkest period of his career, disappearing from the public eye, rumors swirled. Yet, fans noticed something curious. Yibo's work began carrying subtle threads of Xiao Zhan's presence. A lyric in a performance, a quiet mention of a friend during interviews, a motorcycle helmet sticker with colors eerily reminiscent of Xiao Zhan's brand. These were not coincidences. They were quiet signals, breadcrumbs left behind in the storm to remind one person, I am still here. I still see you. Likewise, when Yibo faced scrutiny over his love for motorcycles and his so-called coldness, Xiao Zhan's defense of him in interviews was never loud, but always firm. He described Yibo as focused, dedicated, and kind in ways people don't always see. It was Xiao Zhan telling the world, you misunderstand him but I don't. Behind the curtains, beyond flashing cameras, their bond thrived in the ordinary. They shared meals in tucked-away restaurants, away from paparazzi eyes. They rode together on motorcycles late at night, helmets hiding their faces but not their laughter. One fan account once described seeing them at a small eatery after midnight. Xiao Zhan, ever polite, ordered food with a warm smile, while Yibo sat quietly, occasionally reaching across the table to pick food off Xiao Zhan's plate without asking. Xiao Zhan didn't mind. He just laughed and slid the plate closer. It was a scene so domestic, so ordinary, that it felt almost too intimate for idols of their stature. Yet, perhaps this ordinariness was the essence of their most love, that self. A love that needed no spotlight, a love that found its joy in the everyday. Love is not just about protection, it is about being seen in vulnerability. Xiao Zhan, with his endless warmth, often bore the weight of comforting others. But with Yibo, he allowed himself moments of weakness. In one candid behind-the-scenes clip, Xiao Zhan sits exhausted, head resting on his knees. Yibo walks over silently, doesn't ask what's wrong, doesn't offer words. Instead, he sits beside him, shoulder brushing against his, a bottle of water placed gently in Xiao Zhan's hand. That was the language they spoke. Not dramatic rescues, but steady presence. Not fireworks, but embers that never die out. The world craves big, explosive love stories. Yet what keeps millions fascinated by Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo is that their connection defies spectacle. It is understated, almost fragile in its quietness, yet unbreakable. Their most love, that self, is not about being perfect. It's about being seen at your rawest, messiest, most authentic self, and still being cherished. Xiao Zhan, with his gentleness, and Yibo, with his stoicism, created a balance that fans could only describe as magnetic. And maybe that is why people root for them so fiercely. Because deep down, everyone longs for a love where no masks are needed, where the truest self is enough. Whether fate keeps them on the same path or leads them into different chapters, the legacy of Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's bond will remain etched in the hearts of those who witnessed it. It is not a love defined by labels or loud declarations. It is a silent symphony, played in rain-soaked nights, in unspoken glances, in laughter over midnight meals, in quiet comfort after storms. And perhaps that is the most powerful love of all. The kind that allows you to be wholly yourself and to know without a shadow of doubt that you are enough.